Corporate strategy involves a firm that operates in multiple businesses and multiple markets. In this series of videos, we will discuss how corporate headquarters manages the multi-business firm. This first video focuses on how corporate management structures the organization to run the business efficiently and achieve its strategic objectives. As we mentioned with corporate strategy, the role of corporate headquarters is to manage these multiple strategic business units or multiple divisions. Now, these business units could be based on diversification, where each business unit operates in a different industry, or vertical integration, where each business unit represents a different stage of the value chain. Or it could be global strategy, where each business unit represents a geographic region, or some combination of all three of those. The goal of organizational structure is to structure the organization in a way that provides the reporting structures, the policies, procedures, and the strategic flexibility and strategic control necessary for each business unit to achieve its objective as well as the overall corporate objectives. Designing this corporate structure represents one of the key tasks for corporate headquarters in terms of organizing and managing the relationships among business units, as well as the transfers across business units and the centralization and/or decentralization of decision-making authority. When we get to a diversified firm or multi-business firm, the most typical structure is a multi-divisional form, where the president in light blue and the corporate functions in red represent what happens at headquarters. These activities are managed at headquarters, where they typically take care of the functions that need to be done for all business units. Then you can see for each of the brighter blue SBUs, each of those SBUs operates in its own market, whether it's industrial, geographic, or stage of the value chain, with multiple divisions under each SBU. Each SBU is managed almost like its own individual business with a fair degree of autonomy. However, what's important to note here is the nature or the coordination among business units. For related diversified firms and for vertically integrated firms and for geographic firms where there's some need for the business units to coordinate, the role of headquarters is to design policies and procedures to integrate these SBUs and to get them to share and coordinate, and also to share information upwards. In addition, in an unrelated firm, these SBUs may be treated completely autonomously, almost like their own separate companies. Thus, the nature of the way the firm structures its organization should match its strategy. The more coordination needed, the more the role of headquarters in getting the SBUs to coordinate with each other. And this can be done whether it's through reporting policies, whether it's through requiring frequent meetings, whether they be monthly or quarterly meetings across the business units, or whether it be done through designing incentives and controls that require sharing. So, for example, compensating SBUs based partly on their own business's performance, but also partly on how the entire corporation performs to encourage sharing. Another issue when structuring the organization is how much competition to allow and whether to allow the SBUs to compete with each other. Again, here it must match the strategic goals of the organization. If I need my SBUs to cooperate with each other, I'm going to use tools and mechanisms to force them to cooperate or to get them to cooperate through incentives. However, if I do not need them to work together, I may foster competition to try to make them as efficient and as productive as possible. Now, the multi-divisional form tends to be the most popular, but there are also some issues with it and some benefits from it. In terms of the benefits of this multi-divisional form, you can see the divisional managers have their focused attention on their own division. This manages what they have to focus on and allows them to really dedicate their time and efforts. The authority for decisions can also be linked to the nature of the decision, where I push decisions down so that they're conducted at the appropriate level. Typically, divisions have operating decision control, whereas corporate maintains strategic decision control. We then will align the organization and division goals together, and we use these divisions or these SBUs to help resource allocation, figuring out which, in terms of internal capital markets, which unit deserves more or less capital based on their own performance, but also the growth opportunities for each of the different business units. So I might actually be taking profit from one business unit and moving it to another business unit for next year's allocation. And finally, we want to make sure that the structure is aligned with the overall shareholder goals, most likely, again, superior profitability, growth in revenues, and growth in profits. However, there are some problems with this form. In particular, the headquarters can really constrain the business units depending on how much authority they give them. And so this is a constant tension. In addition, typically in the same company, we'll apply standardized control systems across divisions. However, those different SBUs may be operating in different industries and different markets, which require or really would benefit from having different control systems. But for the sake of corporate headquarters maintaining control and equity, a lot of times control systems may create some friction because they should not be standardized, but they are for better management or more efficient management. As a result, sometimes the M-form structure does not work as efficiently as it should. As a result of some of the problems with M-forms, many organizations have moved towards a more matrix structure where there's a multi-divisional approach here where on one border you can see there is the horizontal axis, the yellow blocks, you can see that there are business units based on, again, whether those be industries or value chain stages or maybe product markets. And then across the vertical axis, you can see the green sections being regions. And here, for example, SBU2, you can see the purple dot. SBU2, that manager represents working for the division of SBU2. Maybe it's a product market. If we think about a company like Procter & Gamble, maybe it's health and beauty aids in Europe. They thus have report to two bosses, one health and beauty and then Europe. What this allows is greater coordination across the different product divisions and across the different geographies, but as well as some control and some information sharing. And so, for example, firms that require more coordination, such as related diversified firms or vertically integrated firms, you're more likely to see a matrix structure with this dual reporting to foster multi-divisional or multifunctional sharing. However, there's a cost here in the form of efficiency and also in the form of creating a culture of complexity where now there's much more information sharing, but that places greater burden on managers, creating problems. Many companies may also add a third dimension here, so there might be a third aspect of this matrix. For example, Nike has frequently been using the matrix for 3 dimensions in terms of one dimension is the products, running, football, soccer, etc. The second dimension is the function, marketing, R&D, engineering, production. And then the third dimension represents the geography, say North America, Europe, etc. And so, for example, you might have a manager who is the manager of running products for marketing in Europe. That person has 3 bosses, which again facilitates information sharing and helps share best practices and share knowledge, but also creates layers of bureaucracy, slowing down decision making and also making change more difficult. Thus, the matrix structure, again, offers some benefits in terms of greater coordination, but also some costs in terms of complexity and slower decision making and greater bureaucracy. Firms must weigh what structure is appropriate to achieve their strategic objectives and find the best structure that aligns the outputs with their achieving their strategic objectives in the best way possible, fitting their organizational culture and the way the various divisions must coordinate with each other.